How we doing? Fox back again. This is going to be my first Native Instruments form tutorial. I had to reset my computer due to some reason that was out of my control, so I had to wipe everything and start again. Already had Complete 10. I thought it was a good time to upgrade Complete 11, considering I was going to have to reinstall it all. So that's what I did. This is one of the new features, or the new synthesizers. It runs inside Reactor, and it is Native Instruments form. It's a sample based synthesizer in regards to that you can just drag any sample in, change your start point, change your play direction, many other different features. I must admit, when I first started playing with this, I thought it was good, another gimmick like rounds. It's got a bit of a more understanding architecture than what rounds did, or contour. Excuse me. But after playing with it for a few hours, it is very, very powerful machine. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Just the raw sound quality is what sets it apart. I thought they've been a little bit lazy in regards to the modulation. They could have had some envelopes that you can draw in yourself. Same with the filter. It's low pass, high pass notch. There's no band pass, no multi-mode filters. They could have made it an absolutely amazing synth rather than just a good one. But anyhow, I'm going to show you how I made this sound. This sound. Everything. Why does the mod wheel stop working? Anyhow, everything that was done in this sound came from one sample, and it was a little glitchy sample. It was this. Do one. I'll supply you with this lick. There'll be a link, a bit.ly Dropbox download link in the description if you want to try and make this yourself. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and initialize this, which I've just done just by clicking on that. So what you do is drag the sample you want in, bang, it's in there. So just bear with me a sec. I've got to find the preset that we just had. Okay, so once you've dragged the sample in there, it pops it in a window like this. You then click, you can preview it. You can, well, it tells you exactly how long the sample is. It's 0.9 seconds. You can already start truncating or messing the sample around now, or you can just click load sample. Then when we go back to the sample window, it shows you this little, this is a pitch curve. It shows you well, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, it does that little pitch in where it's the same sort of pitch at the start. It didn't really make any difference to me because I wasn't using that start of the sound. I'll just say quickly, I didn't read the manual. I've used enough synthesizers to get a basic feel for this, and I've sort of taught myself as I go along. So on this main page, what we're going to do is to start with, we're going to change it to unison mode, keep it on 2, and we're going to push the spread round. Automatically gives it that sort of stereo feel. We're going to uncheck the reset phase, so the unison voices are independent of each other. And yeah, we're going to select the part of the sample you want. If you click on the sample window, you pull up or down, it changes the overall length of the sample playback window, and then you can choose left or right. I had it around about here. Just chose this section here. This, once you've chose the part that you want to do, this bottom section shows how you play that sample over. Now I snapped it in this speed section. I changed it to BPM and I set the rate to 1/8. You see at the minute in this window it's a saw ramp up, so it's playing the sample at its original point to the top. So in this window, from left to right. Time is left to right, up to right is the from start to finish, if you like. I then went to the curve presets, changed it to a triangle wave because I wanted it to ping forward and backwards. I set it to free mode. No, I set it to re-trigger and loop mode, and then changed it to both ways. So every time I press a note, you can see it restarts at the start of the cycle or the start of the sample area that we'd chose. If I hold it down, so you can see what this is doing. It's playing to the end of the sample, it's coming back to the start again, so forward then reverse over the time that we've chose. So retrig, get it to loop so it keeps going. If you uncheck this loop, if you uncheck the loop brace altogether, it just does one cycle. It just goes from one cycle of this waveform. Now this curve editor, you can, if you want, mess around with this. At the top it shows you the length of the grid that you got chose, which is 1/8 or 1/16. You can then drag it off beat if you want. Give you sort of a triplet mode. You can change the play length. I prefer to do all this in the actual sample window here. You can just, if you wanted a smaller section, just change the truncated area that it's going to play back. So yeah, poly mode is selected. I didn't use any glide. Unison 2, the spread is on, the recheck phase is turned off. So now we need to go into the sound section. This is where you've got control over the oscillator, if you like, and what's going on. So I'm going to pitch it down 1 octave to start with. Standard. Pitch tracking is on, that's highlighted. The amount of amp envelope center, amp envelope 1, I had on around about 70%, and I pulled the formant down. Click the formant track check on. This is like your bend negative inside massive. Changing the formant with just the formant being like the sort of vowely texture or how deep it is. I had it on 0.8. And then you have an added bonus of a sub oscillator, if you like. So it's nothing to do with the main sample that you dragged in. You can choose the waveform here. It blends from a sine wave to a sort of squarified sine wave. I had it in between the two. I had the volume on full, and I pitched this down octave as well. Yeah, so that's just like creating your sub oscillator and a bass layer underneath it. Why you wouldn't want to do that on a sound like this, I do not know. Even when you play the notes higher up, it adds a lot more texture having that sine wave underneath it. We then have other controls of how you can shape the sound. The deform I didn't use, I found that to be quite severe. This shaper I did use. This is like a distortion. This added some lovely artifacts higher on up. We're going to modulate this with an LFO later on. We'll quickly push the sustain up on the main amp envelope, just so it's a constant volume once it reaches the end of the attack stage. Watch for a clip in. So the shaper's engaged. FM as well. Again, I haven't read the manual. I don't know what this FM's it by. I'm taking it's just a sine wave, and you're changing the speed or the octave or the range. You get some really gnarly textures if you push that too far around. I had it on 0.9, 0.8. Again, we're going to modulate this with an LFO later on. This stereo, it's like how there was a double tracking of the sound, and you can push it left or right. Quite subtle with the unison and everything that we've already got going on. So I had that on 0.27. This multiply, this is what then introduces the stereo sort of feel. It's almost like a sync, introducing new octaves. So start to get the general feel of the sound now. Before we add the modulation, we're going to go into the effects section. Yeah, loads to do in here. This frequency shaping is cool. It's like two band passes, if you like, that you can separate and introduce different gain staging. So we're going to boost the gain of the lows to about there. You can drag these shapes around, and so it only lets through what's inside these squares. We're going to have some fun making some neuro basses with these later on by modulating these when I get a little bit more used to the synth. I've set the phase. These are the controls for this frequency shaping. You got your band, your level, your center, and your width, and the dry overall wet of the band filter, so you can mix it in. I had it on 100% wet. This warmth does exactly what it says. Bands, I believe it's like multi-band distortion. I kept it on digital, charged it, and then drove it. Again, this synth gives you the capability to totally destroy the sound, so be wary when pushing any of these knobs around too hard. I had it around about a third of the way, sorry. Watch for clipping. Digital distortion or a tube distortion. The tube distortion obviously sounds a lot more analogy. The dynamics, this is like a compressor, and just copy these settings. This played a good part in making the sound a little bit more plucky, and also kept the volume in check. Reverb. Increase the level, push the size around a bit. Low damp, because there was that sub oscillator, I didn't want to be reverbing them. I kept it on a small reverb. The delay as well, I put the level for the delay on macro 1, so I'm going to pull that down. To modulate anything, you hover over it and it sort of gives you this box at the bottom. So if I come over the level for the delay, click on it, the bottom box gives you the source. For this one we're going to call it macro 1, and then your destination amount is there. So now macro 1 is going to control the level of the delay. I kept it on ping pong. It was snapped, the feedback, the damping, and the length was all how it comes as standard. So the only thing I did was give you the chance to introduce it with this macro knob. So yeah, I mean, I would like to rename these. You can change the modulation, whether it's bipolar or unipolar. I haven't found out how to do that on the LFOs yet, but maybe I will in a moment. So yeah, the only other things I did then in the sound section is I used LFO 1, which I set both of these shapes to a triangle. It's an inverted triangle somehow. It must have been the phase. Yep, so it was triangle inverted. The speed, I clicked to BPM and I had at 6/16, which is sort of a very fast offbeat rhythm. Set the trigger to 3, and then I used this LFO 1 then to modulate the FM amount. So again, just click on it, LFO 1, and the destination amount was around about halfway. So how do I change? It doesn't give me the chance to change whether it's bipolar or unipolar, but it does for the macro. We want that unipolar. So yeah, there must be a way you can change it to bipolar, unipolar. What I mean is that you can send it one way off an axis or have it pivot in centre of the point where you are. I'll look in the manual for this and I'll put it in the description once I've worked it out. The other thing I modulated was the shaper. For this I used LFO1 as well and just pushed it up that amount. You can hear a difference that makes modulating the shaper, which is a form of distortion on the FM, giving it a bit more grit. That is the sound done. I really like this oscilloscope in the middle. The only other thing I did on the cutoff, this low pass filter, I clicked on it. I assigned the mod wheel, which is MW, set the destination amount to full. So now if you want to close the sound off, just push the mod wheel up. Negative, sorry. So we're going to close the filter off by pushing the mod wheel up. Yeah, so I had a lot of fun making this, and once the sound's done you can just sort of stretch the sample out. Change the speed rate to 1/4, 1/16 if you're doing a bigger pattern. Let's try changing the direction. Let's try changing it to backwards saw, changing it unloop. What a bit of kit. So I've only scratched the surface on what you can do with this thing. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm certainly learning more and more with this. I will check the manual about how to change the polarity of the LFOs, and if I find out I will put it in there. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Cheers.